Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stand Up Speakeasy. I'm your host, Srethne, and every episode of the Stand Up Speakeasy, I bring on a guest from the Central Time Zone and with roots from the Central Time Zone, but I'll branch out to the Mountain Time Zone and the Eastern and the Pacific eventually. But without further ado, my guest for this episode is from Mississippi originally, but currently lives in New York. Give it up for Lancey Joe. Hey, Lancey Joe, how are you?
Hey, Sareth. Thanks so much for having me. This is so good to be here.
You're welcome. Indeed, thank you for being my guest today. It means a lot. So.
Yeah, and I like it that you're always repping Wu-Tang in all your shows. I love it.
Indeed, they're my favorite hip hop group ever. So,
That's great.
and they're quite nice guys. I got to meet a couple of them. So they're
Oh, wow. Nice.
yeah. And since you live in New York, it's like it's perfect for it.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, I rarely get down to Staten Island, but I do like Wu-Tang's music.
Indeed, most definitely. So you're a stand-up comic in New York, and what's it like out there pre-pandemic when it comes to the comedy scene for you?
Well, I've done a few shows in New York pre-pandemic, but I'm a resident of New York only post-pandemic. So I moved here during the pandemic because I figured this was a good stopping point so I was in Chicago for let's see, five and a half years. I was in Chicago. So this happened, and I was thinking, well, now might be the time to get my foot in the door, so when New York does reopen, I'll at least have my infrastructure there where I have a place to stay. I know the lay of the land. And then when comedy happens, I can focus on that and not so much moving my stuff and how am I going to get a job and this and that. So that was my plan. But I have done a few shows in New York, and they've been really good. It's the one good thing about New York, as far as I'm concerned, is that I've got a Southern accent, and I'm different here, So I take that as a strength to be different. You know how it is in stand up.
Indeed, most definitely. I don't. People tell me, you sound like you're 12, but you say some of the most dirtiest things ever. And I use it to my advantage, and everyone loves it here in Daytona Beach. That's fantastic. So,
That's where you are, Daytona Beach.
yep, I love
Okay,
it.
nice. I've been there a few times. I haven't done comedy there, but I've vacationed there a few times in my life. Always a fun time.
Indeed, most definitely. They're all welcoming to like all forms of comedy, and it's fantastic. I love it here. And my homeroom's it's called the Titternog Irish Pub, and it's like Land of the Youth, I believe, is what it's translated into. And so it's a pretty cool venue. They've been doing stand up for like 11 years there, so it's
Oh,
fantastic.
nice. I'll
Yeah,
have to check that out. I'll definitely hit you up if I come to Florida. Come down there. I'll have to do that.
indeed, most definitely. And I'll introduce you to like all the cool folks and everything like that. So,
Yeah, for sure. This is great. So you're originally from Boulder?
yeah, born and raised in Boulder, lived in Longmont, Colorado for a little bit, and moved down to Pueblo for a little while.
Okay.
So it's a pretty cool spot. And then I lived out in Los Angeles for a little bit too. So
Okay.
yeah,
Did you do comedy in those places, or is that a Florida thing for you?
I did it once in LA, and then I did it a couple times at like open mics in Colorado, and then I said I'm moving to Florida, and I just want three comics and three bands to send me on my way because I was a concert journalist, and so they my eyes are all watering. So
You all
it's not
right?
yeah, I'm not teary eyed or anything, but I think something just flew in there or something. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, not that I just watched the Notebook or anything, but
Yes. Well, I've got it going on in the background, so I'll start crying here in a second when he builds that house. I can't handle it.
indeed, most definitely. But yeah, and then it turned into a festival, and then like by accident because everyone wanted to be a part of it, and then my first show happened after that, like 4 months later. So it's a weird comedy journey. So.
Well, let me ask you. I'm sorry that I'm asking you questions. You're supposed to be asking me, but if you don't mind me asking, we've got to talk about this. This you being a concert journalist. What in the world? That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. I did that in Los Angeles. I majored in concert journalism. Like journalism in Colorado, and my teacher gave me my first assignment, which was like 303. They're a group from Fort Collins and Boulder, and then I took that knowledge and I went to Los Angeles and I did my apprenticeship. I was a concert journalist out there too, and they would pay me to go to concerts. I'm like, wow, this is pretty neat. So I'd get paid to go to sold out concerts and
Oh man.
yeah, I got to see like Soundgarden and Deftones and Cypress Hill and all these big old bands, and I'm just like, this is the life. Like I was living on the Sunset Strip like almost every day, almost every night. So it's pretty fun.
Did you meet the members of Soundgarden?
I didn't, but I met Be Real from Cypress Hill and
Okay.
yeah, and a bunch of other musicians and stuff like that, and it was pretty neat.
Oh man. Did you see any crazy stuff go on?
Um, I saw um there's a lot of crazy stuff that happened, but I remember going to see Be Real and interviewing. He was my very first professional interview, and he had like so much weed on the table. It was so potent. I'm like, this is so crazy. And yeah, but it was pretty awesome.
I could imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're fresh. This is your first professional interview. You're doing everything to the T, and he's got enough weed there to send you to jail for 20 years.
Indeed, it was so awesome. I loved it. It was great. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. And then I didn't want to go deaf, so I said I'm gonna just focus on comedy journalism and interview comics
Okay.
and stuff like that. And I take photos of all the comics on stage here, and so they use it for their promo stuff.
Oh,
And
nice, nice,
it's
nice.
fantastic. I don't charge them or nothing, and they're just like, "Oh, wow, I got a professional shot of me on stage. It's
Yes,
fantastic." And going back
yes.
to the Tinnanog Irish pub, it has like the perfect lighting, the perfect sound, everything for comedy, and it's like very intimate, and it's just like that's where all of our pictures come from, pretty much. So it's pretty neat.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
great. Uh, yeah, that. I love that transformation. I kind of did that in my own career, but from a performance. So I was like a DJ, like a not like I wasn't like a club DJ or anything. I was like a wedding, birthday party DJ, wedding reception type thing. And I loved being on the microphone, and I was like, I'm gonna do comedy where it's all microphone. There's no music, and it's not so much. I love music. Don't get me wrong, but I wanted to like express myself in that way. So that kind of led to my stand up career. Uh,
awesome. What kind of music did you play as a DJ?
uh, mostly like rap, like hip hop, stuff like that, and it just depended on the night. And like I said, if I did a wedding reception, a lot of times, with the bride and groom, like kind of what they were into. So I didn't have just one standard genre. I played a lot of different things. And then, so mostly like pop, I would say most of the parties were like old school hip hop and like the new fun song and like the line dances and stuff like that you would do at a wedding reception.
Indeed, most definitely. I'm the DJ at the Tinnanog Irish pub, and
Oh,
so
okay.
they
Yeah,
pick
so
their
I'm speaking your
songs. And
language. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah, it's a quite eclectic mix. I mean, we jump from like Limp Bizkit to Ween
Yes, yes.
to Train, and it was
Right.
just there. We just bounce around everywhere. It's fun.
Right. And
Yeah,
like when the new song comes out that everybody wants to hear, you'll play that one a couple of times a night. And but like it just depends. And that's how I was. Like some nights it would be like I would play all like really old school stuff, like like Motown stuff, and the crowd seemed to want that. And then the next night I would be playing all new stuff that's like kind of fun and like like the line dance, like the wobble and the Cupid shuffle and the cha cha slide, stuff like that. So that was kind of how we kind of just felt it out.
indeed. And as a DJ and as a stand-up comic, you got to learn to read the room, and so that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing that the DJs and stand-up comics have in common.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, because yes, Yeah, because it's a matter of personal health to not read the room correctly in either, really in stand up more than it is, because if you read the room wrong, I mean, everybody will be pissed at you, like what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you saying right now?
Most, indeed, most definitely. That's good stuff. And you're also a storyteller from Mississippi. And what was it
Mhm.
like living in Mississippi?
It was so I think that I was blessed to have to grow up. So I'm 38 years old. So I kind of grew up before the internet. Like, I mean, the internet was there, but like before it was really prevalent, before we were using it a lot on a daily basis. And I also grew up in a small like suburb of Memphis, Tennessee, but it was technically in Mississippi. So I kind of grew up in between all these different things. So I was able to see, I knew country life, but I also knew city life because we were close enough to Memphis to, like, I was in Memphis almost every day when I was a kid. So you kind of knew these different things, and I think it gave me a lot of insight on like the different types of people that are out there. Not that Memphis is not like New York. Obviously, it's not nearly that size, but at least it gave me some sort of vision on like, oh, people don't, this is not like farmland out here. This is like a city, and then you go an hour or 20 minutes south and you're in farmland. You're like truly in farmland, uh, so I think it gave me a good in between, between those two. And the city that I grew up in is constantly growing, so it's every time I go back, it has changed. It's growing at a high rate.
Most definitely. I visited Memphis one time on my way to Florida, and I didn't know how close Mississippi was, and I was just like blown away because like some family friends would come in and visit from Mississippi. I'm like, isn't that a far drive? And I was like, no, it's just right across the bridge or down the street or something. And it's just like, well, that's pretty close. I didn't know Memphis and Mississippi were so close together like that. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, yeah. So, like in regular life, if somebody says, "Where are you from?" If they hear my accent, they're like, "Where are you from?" If I want to have a conversation with them, like if like not that I'm like, "Oh, get away from me," not like that. I'm talking about like if for instance, if I was in a hurry, I would just say Memphis. I'm just from Memphis. Let's not talk about it. Like, let's go. But if I'm trying to be, interesting, I'll say Mississippi, because that tends to, especially in New York or Chicago, like Mississippi, what are you doing here? You know?
Indeed. And speaking of Chicago, you mentioned that you stayed there for like a little over 5 years. And what was
Mhm.
that scene like in Chicago?
Chicago was really great. I think it's the home of my stand-up career, really. I mean, although I did start in Mississippi and Memphis, but uh, that's where I really was like brought up in stand-up. So I love Chicago, and it's got, I mean, on a normal basis before pre-COVID, you could do 5 open mics a night if you wanted to. It's a great scene. Of course, after this, I'm sure all of the scenes are going to have to recover, and like start building back up. So who knows? But they'll at least be one a night, I'm sure, once the pandemic is over. But the scene there is so cool, and there's such a diverse group of like, and like of comedians, that all different types of acts, all different types of personalities, and I've made some of my best friends in my life there. So I have nothing but good things to say about Chicago. It's a great city.
Most definitely, indeed. And I grew up with this guy that was in Pueblo where I did stand up mostly, and his name is Travis McMullen, and he lived in Memphis. I'm not sure if you guys crossed paths while you lived out in Memphis during that, if it
That
was
name
around.
sounds familiar. I don't think that I know him though.
Oh, for sure. And he does all my artwork and stuff. He's a fantastic artist too. So
Oh, nice.
yeah,
Nice. I'll look him up after this.
most definitely, indeed. So your particular brand is farcical. We joke writing, and that keeps audiences reeling, and that's part of your bio.
Right.
What made you pick those words to describe your stand up?
Um, well, that's tricky. I was trying to find the right thing to say there. I'm not sure when I wrote that. I don't have a team. Surprise, surprise. I don't have a team writing those things about me. This was not from the New York Times that you're describing. Uh, so, yeah. So I think farcical, I like that. So we kind of discussed that word a minute ago before we came on the air. So like a farce, it's like unbelievable kind of, but at the same time it's entertaining at times. And then the storytelling part, those are more believable things. Of course sometimes I exaggerate, stand up, but yeah, I think that the storytelling kind of keeps it grounded, and then I have a few bits in there that are very farcical, which is you know, having to do with the accent, having to do with being raised in Mississippi, and really how people think about my accent and how people see somebody who's from Mississippi, like or like how they're judging me, or how I feel like they're judging me before they even really know me, which is funny. It's a good thing. I'm not like criticizing them for that. It's fun for me.
Most definitely. And I go through the same thing. Like, just I tell people never judge a book by its cover. And then like once you like you know bury your soul on stage, they're like, wow, this is intense, and they fall in
Yeah.
love with that. So
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it is human nature to judge books by their cover. I mean, especially you don't really have a choice. I mean, when you look at something, you see it before you read it. You just don't have time to read. You like if I look at a book, you don't know what's in it yet unless you've already read it, right?
Yeah.
So it's fun to play with that, like their perception of what they think that they see, and how you feel about you thinking that they think that you think that. You know what I'm saying?
Indeed, most definitely. And so, with a twang and a dream, you've been showcasing your jokes all over the place. And what are some of your favorite places that you performed your jokes at?
Let's see. Well, in Memphis, uh, I went. So this was after I'd lived in Chicago for a few years. I did a place called the Midtown Crossing, and I think that place might have gone out of business. So fingers crossed that because of the pandemic. So hopefully that doesn't stay permanent. Maybe somebody can reopen it, or we'll have all this stuff, all this work to kind of figure out once the pandemic's over. Uh, but so the Midtown Crossing in Memphis, I think that was the highlights of one of my my career. Just because a lot of people from home were at the show, and I was able to do my comedy that I've been working on for a few years. And let's see, in Chicago, there was a place, and this was an open mic, but so it wasn't a proper show, but this was a place that I felt like was always a fun place to go do open mic, which was Patsy's in Chicago. And I hosted that open mic for a little while, and it was always so great. And that place also, of course, went out of business. But I think they actually went out of business before the pandemic, so they were trendsetters for the pandemic. But anyways, yeah, that was a fun one. It was a very small room with like low ceiling, so it was very intimate, so even if so you'd be doing an open mic, you know how open mics are. Like sometimes 5 people show up. Sometimes it's like 30 people are in this very small room. You never can tell with open mics. So even if only 5 people were in there, it felt like you were doing something because the room was so small. They were right there with you. And let's see, where else did I like to perform? I performed once at Zany's in Chicago. Zany's in Chicago is kind of like a a world renowned club. So I performed there once, and I think that was like one of the highlights of my career, is that room was so like, it's almost sacred to me as a comic.
Indeed, most definitely. And like for the last part of your bio, it says you get ready to laugh, cry, and fall in love with Lancey Joe, and I can totally relate to that because, like, I love like how you as a stand-up comic can make people like just feel all kinds of emotions during like your stand-up set. So,
Right.
and yeah, and it says that you have a record in stores now. It says.
Yeah, it's not a record. It's just me in stores now. I'm actually in the store. You can see me in stores. No, that part was actually just kind of making fun of how they advertise things. Yeah, and I mean, I guess it is true, like the laugh, cry, and fall in love. I think that's how they used to do like 90s movies. They would say that about like every movie that came out. It was like laugh, cry, and fall in love with whatever, Forrest Gump or whatever, so that was kind of an allusion to that genre of advertising films. So yeah, that's what that little section of my bio was about.
Awesome. And Siskel and Ebert would give you 2 thumbs up for sure.
Yes. That's usually what it was followed by. Is you're right.
Indeed. And they're based out of Chicago, or when they were, still around. So,
Yes.
yep.
I don't know, or I know one of them passed away. I don't know if both of them did or not. I thought one of them was hanging on for a little while. They might both be gone now. I'm not sure.
Indeed. I remember there was like Ebert and Roper for a little while, and then I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've seen their thumbs up for anything. So hopefully
Yeah.
they're okay. I don't know.
So it must have been Siskel that passed away many years ago. And then I don't know if Ebert's still alive though. We'll have to do some research on that one.
Absolutely. Indeed. And so, Lancey Joe, these are the questions I wanted to ask you if the pandemic didn't hit and I was able to go on tour and interview you in person. So, Lancey Joe, what inspired you to perform stand-up comedy?
Probably Chris Rock. I guess I should talk about that a little more. Yeah, Chris Rock's. We used to listen to Bigger and Blacker every day after school. Me and my friend, we on actual CD. We would listen to the CD in my car every day after school, and just his raw, like I wanted to. It's not that my style is nothing like Chris Rock's, of course, but I love the fact that he could bring me that type of joy, and I wanted to cause that reaction in someone else, if that makes any sense, without being too pretentious about the whole process. I want to create that in someone else. I want someone else to look at me like, that made me laugh until I cried. That was so good. So that goal is kind of what got me into it.
Indeed. And what was the feeling like when you first performed stand-up?
What was my act like?
The feeling like.
What was that?
What was the feeling like when you first performed stand-up?
Oh, the feeling. It was kind of like an outer body experience. The very first one, it was over so quickly, because for me, that very, very first one, I was thinking, oh gosh, I think the first one I did, the first open mic I did was, I was like, I think they gave us 5 minutes. And I remember thinking, man, I've got to fill 5 minutes. How am I going to do this? It's got a lot of material or whatever. And then I got up there and it seemed like it was just over like that. So yeah, that one was kind of an outer body experience. It was probably horrible. I didn't have anybody I knew there. It was just, I went and did this. I was like, I don't want anyone to see this. I don't want anybody to see what's about to happen here. So I don't remember a lot from it, but I do remember that it went by really quick.
Indeed. And you mentioned Chris Rock's Bigger and Black Bear. And what are your other favorite comedy specials and comedy record albums?
Uh, let's see. Of course, I have such a cliche answer for this one, but I don't care. It's the truth. Even though it's cliche, it's the truth. I love Chris Rock's Bigger and Blacker. I love Chappelle's Killing Them Softly. And I think that For What It's Worth by Chappelle is so good. Because that's right when he was in the stride of the Chappelle Show was when he recorded that one, if you remember. And let's see. I liked. I know it's controversial right now, but just all that aside, just as a comic performance, Louis C.K. stuff. He had several albums in there that really, I think, changed the way I looked at comedy. And that was a little bit later on. So I guess maybe I'm trying to think of the names of them, but he was just on a streak there. He was on a tear where he was releasing one every year. And then of course there's some of George Carlin's back in the day. There's some, and he's another one. He had like 14 hours of specials. So I can't even identify which ones I liked most. I thought that his style was so interesting. And same thing with Richard Pryor. There was a lot of stuff, I can't name the album specifically, but a lot of his stuff were just so good. So good.
Indeed, most definitely. And if you can, some of those guys have been on TV and film, and I want to know what your favorite sitcom, sketch shows, and comedy films are.
Oh, okay. So I'm a sitcom person. I love sitcoms. I'm such a 90s child, even though I was born in the 80s, but I grew up in the 90s where sitcoms were king. This is probably the most controversial thing. I love Friends. I love the show Friends. A lot of people hate on that show. That's their opinion. I don't get mad that they hate it, but I love it. I love Friends. I love How I Met Your Mother. I love Big Bang Theory. I love New Girl. I've been in a New Girl recently. Oh, love that show. So yeah, almost any sitcom I could probably get into. Seinfeld, of course. And his stand-up too. I didn't mention that earlier. So you said sitcoms. What was the second thing?
Sketch shows.
Sketch shows. Chappelle Show was a great sketch show. Let's see. SNL. I don't get into sketch shows as much as I do sitcoms, but of course, I mean, who could ignore Saturday Night Live and Chappelle Show, And then what was the third one?
Comedy films.
Comedy films. Ooh. So my favorite film of all time is Napoleon Dynamite. That's of all genres, of everything. So I think it's considered a comedy to most people. So that's my number one, I would say. Let's see, comedy films. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels was really a good show for straight up comedy. There's so many. It's hard to pick, It's like talking about like who's influenced you most in life. There's so many people. So I'm just going to leave it at Napoleon Dynamite.
Indeed, most definitely. And if you can go on tour with any comedian locally and internationally known, which comedians would you like to go on tour with?
Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, Seinfeld. Let's see. So those are the big ones. Those are in the upper echelon of comics. let's see. I would say though that my friends at so I used to produce a show in Chicago. I guess it's still technically going on. Everything's on pause because of this. But the Comedy Tub in Chicago was a show we used to do every Thursday and Friday night in Chicago. And my fellow producers in that show were Aaron McDavis, Nick DeLowy, Adam Bowman, and Laura Hug. We all produced this show, so we performed together several times a week. Sometimes, I mean, there were nights where I would see Laura Hug. We would do 5 shows in a row together, you know, and I really, really miss those people that I mentioned. I really miss them. They were like family members to me, and we're still in touch and everything. But it would be surreal to go on the road with them and do a show, and like, you know, do a series of shows together, or even one show. It would be great. So that's something to look forward to once this pandemic's over. I could go back to Chicago, maybe see them, and although some of them aren't even in Chicago anymore. Adam Bowman is. I don't even know where he's at. He's in a state of you know, travel right now. You know how the pandemic does to people. Moves them around a little bit.
Indeed, so, most definitely. And let's see, if you can get roasted by 5 comedians, past and present, which comedians would they get roasted by?
Me get roasted? Good luck, first of all. No. Let's see. The roast comics. Those, you know, they had those Comedy Central roasts that were so funny. Those people, I guess that Comedy Central roast crew that used to do like that average thing, and Richard Pryor has a good roast on YouTube. I don't know. Have you seen that?
Yep, with Paul Mooney and stuff.
Yes. Oh, it's so funny. And Richard Pryor at the end, he's getting roasted, and he's the best one. He roasts everybody on the panel so well. Oh my gosh. So I think like that crew, that whole panel of people that were on his show and him, that would be the best.
Indeed, most definitely. And what do you see your comedy career in the next 5 years?
Well, I think so this pandemic was supposed to last 2 weeks, and we're going on a year. So hopefully it's over in the next 5 years and we can do comedy. So hopefully I'll do one open mic in the next 5 years. Now I'm being facetious, of course. You know, I don't really know. I think that I really do enjoy like stand up. I mean, I enjoy the open mic process. I enjoy the shows, of course. And sometimes the open mics are even more fun than the shows. That I've had more fun at open mics before than shows that I've gotten paid well for, you know? So I just hope that I still have that urge to do it. And of course I'm coming from a place right now where we've been, you know, kind of isolated and everything. So I'm a little nostalgic for it. But hopefully in 5 years, I'm still kind of in the scene doing this. Of course, I would love to be a nationally touring headliner, but we'll kind of see what cards I get.
Indeed, most definitely. And I couldn't agree with you more. Like, I love the open mics more than the shows because there's not a lot of pressure and can just have fun on stage. And it's just a lot more fun to let loose and just try new things.
Yes. And everyone else, too, is doing that. So you're not like, it's not like on a show, if you let loose and have fun, you know, that might work and it might work for you, but all your friends may not be there and they're nervous if they have to perform. And then like, you're like, oh, I had a bad set or you had a good set, whatever. At an open mic, it really doesn't, you know, I mean, of course, sometimes you want to have a good set at an open mic, but other times, like you said, yeah, you can experiment and mess around and like just have fun with your friends. That's the, I really feel like that's the beautiful part of stand-up specifically is open mics.
Indeed, most definitely. And which other forms of comedy would you like to venture off into, like improv, sketch, comedy writing, acting, directing, etc.?
Oh, I don't think I would do acting if it was paying the bills, you know. If they were like, oh, we'll give you this will pay your rent for this year if you do this acting job. But I don't enjoy acting like I do stand up. Uh, I think, I guess maybe improv. I think that's a cool thing because when you see them really create something out of nothing in improv, oh, it's like a religious experience to see that. You're like, where did that come from? That's surreal. That is surreal how they just did that. And stand up touches on that a little bit. Sometimes you'll see somebody doing crowd work, or you can just feel that they're riffing, and it's like this holy experience coming out, and everyone's connected in the right way. So yeah, improv. I think I would try that.
Most definitely. And what is your favorite joke a comic has written?
A favorite joke a comic has written. Gosh, that's a tough one because there's just so many. I feel bad because I'm like I can only think of my jokes right now. As a comic, you're like programmed not to like. But there was a joke I was telling somebody the other day. It's like I wish I had written that joke because it's so good, but I can't remember what it was now, and that's got me on the hang up. Let's see. I can't really think of one right now. I don't know if that's an option in this interview.
It's totally fine.
Okay, all right. You know what? For those of you watching the show that really want to know which joke that I'm talking about, when it comes to me, I will post it in my Facebook status, or yeah, I'll post it on Facebook or Twitter or something. Both. I'll post it on both. I'll say, this is it. I wish I would have written this joke, but I didn't. And then colon quote, and then I'll do the joke. And so that way you'll be able to see what it was.
Indeed. If you want, you can comment below on the video on YouTube too about your the favorite joke.
Oh yeah, I'll do that. That'll cut out the middleman.
Sounds great. Indeed. And what experience would you like your audience to take with them after a set is over?
Hopefully, I mean, obviously, I want them to think the ego side of me wants them to think that I'm just the most funny person they've ever seen. But I think, if it could be something even bigger than that, that would be awesome. Like, oh, well, we're all connected, or we're all part of this society, and we're not that different. We're not all that different, if they could take away something like that, not that I write towards that, but if that was a takeaway, I would be blessed.
Most definitely. Indeed. Lancey Jo, for this next part, you were nominated as a guest on Stand Up Speakeasy, and that's how you get into the show. It's like it's kind of like the Prohibition, the Roaring Twenties. It's like you got to know someone that knows somebody. So it's like a secret society of stand-up comics. So with that being said, Lancey Jo, which comics would you like to see on the future episodes of the Stand Up Speakeasy? They can be from New York, Chicago, Memphis, Mississippi, wherever you want.
Okay, I will. I'll tell you. So let's see, the 4 people I mentioned from Comedy Tub, I like them, and I'll add my friend from New York, John Randall, who is he does stand up. He's a great stand up, and he's also a really good improviser too. So I think he would be really good if you can get him on. So John Randall. And then the others were Nick DeLowy, Aaron McDavis, let's see, Laura Hug, and Adam Bowman. So those people, I think, that's who I want to see. Maybe even Tristan A. Smith. He's a good one.
Absolutely. I'll be sure to reach out to all those fine folks, and I might need your help on spelling their names because my spelling is
yes,
terrible.
And some of their Facebook names are kind of either. I don't think John Randall even has a Facebook, so I'll have to connect y'all organically, you know.
Okay.
And then like Aaron McDavis's is, I think it's Aaron Leroy right now. So we'll have to see what his Facebook name is at the time. You know how comedians are, like always switching it up.
Yep, absolutely. Indeed. And Lancey Joe, your Venmo is scrolling on the bottom there, and I'm trying to raise funds for comics during this time because there's like no shows for anyone, and so trying to put some money in your pockets and all that stuff. So your Venmo is scrolling on the bottom. So if you're watching at home, please donate to Lancey Joe. And are there any final words you'd like to give out to the audience at home, Lancey Joe?
Y'all stay safe. I know these are challenging times for everybody, and stay safe. Try to stay sane. Try to stay sane in this crazy environment. I mean, what a weird year, you know. 2020 was so weird, and hopefully 2021 will just crescendo out and keep getting better and better. So I love you guys. And Sarah, thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome, Lancey Joe. Thank you for being my guest on the show, and it means a lot to me. And hopefully, in time when the pandemic clears and I get to go on tour, our paths will cross, whether it's in Florida or Colorado or New York or wherever. And there'd be
For sure, I've got to come to Florida. I've got to do that, and Colorado for that matter. I've never performed in Colorado. I've visited there. It's beautiful.
Indeed, I love the mountains, and I can't wait to move back home. So it's gonna be fantastic.
Yes.
Indeed. And Lancey Joe, thank you so much. And as I promised, Joe, I promised we'd keep this under an hour and all that good stuff. I thank you so much for your time and how I got to interview you and all that good stuff. And hopefully this will you can add it to your press kit, and I'll piece everything together and I'll send it your way and make it look cherry for you.
Thanks, man. It's been great interviewing you, and I think you got a cool vibe going on here with this show. This is cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lancey Joe.
All right.
Be well and talk to you soon. Be well. And for everyone else, we'll see you on the next episode of the Stand Up Speakeasy. Be well, everyone.
Bye.